to the matrix, if you like, of the institution. And we were aware that our colleagues often come to us, colleagues from other non-art subject areas, and say, oh, can you come and do this with our students? Can you come and do some role play with our students? Can your students come and play a role as part of their learning? And we thought, whilst we were very happy to do that, we wondered what it was that our students perhaps could do that their students weren't able to, or did not feel that they were in a position to do so. So that made us think about our own teaching practice and our culture of teaching practice, if you like, and what our drama therapy pedagogy was. So that's been really the broad question of our research, is what is it that we do that perhaps could be exported to other subcultures within the wider dominant culture of the university. So we chose artography as our research methodology. You may or may not be familiar with artography, but we felt it was really important that we engaged in this research from a variety of different perspectives. So artography allows you to research something in 3 different roles, that of being an artist, a researcher, and a teacher. So it's worth saying that this was largely a reflective piece of research. So we were the participants, so at the base of our research was our experience. So we were continually engaging in the dramatic art form throughout the process to try and elicit or uncover new meanings or new things to emerge. We're also engaged in perhaps more traditional research, going and looking at the literature and things like this, as well as bringing our own experience from our teaching practice or ongoing practice simultaneously. So what's important about artography is that much of the literature says that there are perhaps 6 or so distinct renderings that describe, if you like, the artographic process. So I could stand here and go through what those renderings are with you, but that would perhaps be against the spirit of artography, because artography is very much about the researchers finding their own new meanings and creating new concepts, which is what we've done. So we've come up with 8 renderings, or concepts if you like, that have served, they have a dual purpose. Not only do they describe themes that arose for us through the research process, later on we also came to realise that they actually formed a package of our teaching pedagogy that we could actually export to other non-art subject areas. So there's a double purpose there. So the first of these things is space. So through the research we've really been reflecting on the importance of giving students and ourselves space. Now there's a growing conflict with this within higher education. Certainly in the UK, as education is becoming more expensive, people are expecting more for their money. And this is really difficult because there's a tendency to want to fill the space to prove that you are giving people what they deserve and what they're paying for. So we've really had to remind ourselves how important it is to offer space so that new meanings can emerge. And we were making a lot of links here with Peter Brook and his teachings about the importance of the empty space. And that's a concept that's alive in theatre, but that perhaps also plays out in theatre of the education as well, and how we need to give space for things to emerge. So it's not about filling gaps, but creating them instead. So the second rendering that we've created is that of rediscovery, which again has several different layers of meaning to it. The first of which has been us rediscovering our connection with our dramatic art form as artists. But it's also been really interesting because there's been lots of things that we've forgotten that this process has reminded us, which made us think about the idea that actually knowledge is not about acquiring things, it's not about this consumerist culture about get, but often it's just about remembering things or reminding ourselves of things that perhaps lie dormant or perhaps lie lower somewhere in our unconscious, if you like. So we're really interested in making these connections and rediscovering things that we'd forgotten or left behind. Uncertainty. So this is obviously the currency that we work with a lot in clinical work, but it's perhaps also important to think about it in an educational context as well. So Claxton talks about the importance of not knowing what you are doing and how actually that's a catalyst for learning, because to be unsure puts you in a vulnerable position, but it also makes you receptive to new ideas and to new meaning. And to perhaps be in a position of certitude is actually quite a dangerous place to be, because that's when perhaps assumptions start to play out and critical thinking goes out the window. So we felt that embracing the unknown and the uncertain is a really, really important part of teaching practice for training therapists. So embodiment. This was really interesting because we got really far on in the research and then realised that we were just intellectualising everything and we were just all in our heads and not in our bodies at all. And when we actually started embodying these themes and these concepts, that's when really interesting things started to emerge. And I guess that's when we started to uncover our emotions as well. And that's really when the process started to deepen, was when we brought our totality of self to the research process rather than just thinking cognitive about what we were doing, which is so often what we do in education anyway. So it just reminded us again of the importance of encouraging students to embody and use all of their self. This rendering we found particularly seductive, if you like. Working in a higher education institution, we work with a lot of restrictions and a lot of restraints. So it's actually really refreshing to perhaps test those boundaries a little bit and maybe tiptoe along the edge of what was acceptable and what was appropriate. So that was really fun and that was really playful. But we also have been thinking about excess. Firstly, in terms of what is excessive, so taking things perhaps to another level, pushing things further than we might normally do, but also in terms of the editing process. So what did we cut out? What did we deem to be excessive and leave behind? And there are lots of things that we have left behind today that we haven't brought with us. But interestingly enough, some of those motifs bounced back and have come back towards the end of the research process, which has been really interesting because when these things have come back, they've somehow changed in meaning or shifted. So it's kind of like they served a purpose initially, then we forgot about them and we've rediscovered them. So the renderings are kind of really interrelated to each other as well.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the imagination. And what we recognise is that whilst drama therapy focuses uniquely on the use of the imagination, we also recognise that the wider culture, or the more dominant culture of the HEI, Higher Education Institute, also engaged the imagination. And actually the imagination is the currency for learning. So we made some interesting connections in both higher education and in schooling. And in some cases we learned that some teachers were deliberately leaving gaps so that their pupils could fill in missing parts. And in some ways, this facilitated active engagement. And there's some nice links here with Peter Brook. Yeah? The simplicity of a story enables the audience to fill in the details. So that was quite a nice connection for us. Could we have the next slide, please? Laddering. Now, we're all familiar with laddering in arts therapies. Yeah? Lowering inhibitions, starting where people are at, building the scaffolding slowly. But what was a surprise to us, and what we rediscovered, is laddering also needs to happen if we are exporting our ideas to an unarts-based setting. We needed to allow for fear. And in a sense, what we rediscovered is the importance of the drama. It always remains the same. It's just that the context has changed. So all our trainings, all our learnings as arts therapists, we can apply when we're exporting our ideas to an unarts-based educational setting. And in a sense, whilst this isn't new, it felt like we were revisiting our earlier learning, and it was in some ways reinforcing what we already knew. So if we could have the next slide, which is mystery. Yeah. The importance of mystery. What we don't know sometimes excites us. Yeah. So in a sense, leaving gaps helps to facilitate that yearning to find out more. So if we were thinking in terms of a lecture where there were spaces or gaps, or we only offered limited thinking, it facilitates the student to go out and think and apply that learning outside the lecture space. Because sometimes what we have is that students, they want everything, they want information, which actually they can't engage with. So we recognised that the mystery was important, not only in our own educational processes as drama therapists, but actually we could facilitate mystery in an arts-based setting. So again, what we're trying to do here is recognising the importance of active student participation. And in some ways this is not new as arts therapists and drama therapists. Boal encouraged his audience to be active in the engagement process of creating theatre. And what we recognise is that process has validity in education, in that learning happens when students are actively engaged. The mystery is there, the space is there to permit the imagination to make it alive, as opposed to me doing all the work. Yeah? So again, it's working with this idea of co-creation. Yeah, we are both creating our learning together. Well, this is a big moment. The air can't. I was hoping for a bigger audience, if I'm honest.
Well, I thought it perhaps typically here it's more likely to have been in the cinema.
Over there.
Yeah,
Well, that's where it should have been.
Yeah, a bit grander, you
Yeah.
know, red seats.
Yeah, yeah. We could have had someone really special, someone special to announce this unveiling. Maybe
Sue Jennings.
Sue Jennings. Nice lady.